Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are completely shattering our most deeply held conventional stereotypes about the dinosaur world. I mean, if you think you know what the giants of the prehistoric world looked like, well, get ready. Prepare to have your mind completely blown by a creature that was just bizarrely engineered for survival. Just think about it for a second. When you hear the term sauropod, that famous group of long-necked dinosaurs, what instantly pops into your head? You're probably picturing a massive, smooth, mountain-sized giant, right? We all think of those classic towering, gentle giants from pop culture, like a Brachiosaurus peacefully munching leaves from the tops of trees. But nature, as we're about to see, absolutely loves to break its own rules. Okay, let's dive into this. On one hand, you have our expectation, the towering, smooth, 80-foot giants we've all known since childhood. But then, there's the reality of the Amargasaurus, a spiked 33-foot dwarf. It literally traded that massive, towering, unassailable size for an incredibly dramatic, almost unbelievable row of weaponized neck spines. To really wrap our heads around this creature, we have to ground ourselves in time and space. We're looking at roughly 130 million years ago, placing the Amargasaurus squarely in the early Cretaceous period. They were roaming around the ancient, lush, and seriously competitive forests of South America, specifically in what we know today as Argentina. It's an environment that produced easily one of the most visually shocking, unique dinosaurs ever discovered by science. Section 1. The bizarre spiked neck. A true paleontological marvel. 2 feet. That is the jaw-dropping length these bony spines could reach. Unlike literally any other long-necked dinosaur we know of, the Amargasaurus possessed 2 parallel rows of long, backward-pointing bony spines erupting right out of its neck's vertebrae. I mean, just visualize that for a moment. 2 rows of rigid bone shooting up to 2 feet straight out of its neck, creating this striking silhouette against the prehistoric canopy. It completely redefines what a sauropod could even look like. Now, for decades, paleontologists have passionately debated what these massive spines actually looked like when the animal was walking around. The dual sail theory suggests these spines were covered in a tough skin membrane, creating a really dramatic, fleshy double sail. The whole purpose here would probably be for elaborate mating displays, or maybe regulating body temperature in the warm Cretaceous climate. But then you contrast that with the spiked cage theory. More recent studies point to a much more aggressive reality. These spines might have actually been covered in shark, horn-like keratin sheaths. This would literally turn the dinosaur's neck into a deadly spiked cage, designed specifically to keep apex predators away. Now, what's really interesting here is that, like I said earlier, nature loves to break its own rules. The Amargasaurus didn't just rely on being too large to be eaten. It actively traded sheer, overwhelming size for extreme weaponized adaptations. So instead of outgrowing its predators, it evolved to outarm them. It's this fascinating evolutionary pivot that tells us so much about the specific intense pressures this creature actually faced out there in the wild. Section 2. A dwarf among giants. A highly unique engineering feat. This comparison really illustrates just how different the Amargasaurus was from its cousins. While classic sauropods stretched over 80 feet in length with these massive, ground-shaking weights, the Amargasaurus was practically a dwarf by comparison. It reached a modest 33 feet in length and weighed roughly 2 to 3 tons. And look at the build. Instead of towering high into the canopy to strip leaves from the tallest branches, it was built remarkably low to the ground. This compact, heavy build gave them a much lower center of gravity, which was perfectly suited for navigating dense underbrush. And this unique anatomy entirely dictated their daily survival. Because their front legs were actually slightly shorter than their back legs, their heads were naturally positioned very close to the earth. This proves they were highly specialized, low-level browsers. So instead of grazing from the tall treetops like those giants we talked about earlier, their diet was heavily restricted to ferns, horsetails, and really tough ground vegetation. Basically, everything about their physical body was totally optimized for life right on the forest floor. Section 3. Surviving apex predators. A brutal prehistoric battlefield. Living low to the ground in the early Cretaceous period was incredibly dangerous. Survival was a daily, constant challenge. Mostly because the Amargasaurus shared its environment with some truly terrifying predators. Specifically, they were hunted by early carcard Dinosaurids, these massive, deadly apex carnivores, armed with serrated, shark-like teeth. With threats like that constantly lurking in the lush forests of Argentina, the Amargasaurus absolutely had to have an effective way to defend itself. And remember, because the Amargasaurus lacked the crushing size of its giant relatives, it couldn't simply rely on its mass. If a predator attacked from the shadows, it couldn't just step on its enemies or intimidate them away with sheer volume. So their defense had to be fast. It had to be brutal. Their absolute first line of defense was speed and striking power, utilizing their long, whip-like tails to lash out with literal bone-breaking force at anything that got too close. But what if the predator dodged the tail and kept coming? Well, that's when they deployed their ultimate weapon, a deadly, puncturing spiked neck. If we lean into the keratin sheath theory, those 2-foot parallel spikes were absolutely lethal in close-quarters combat. A single powerful downward or lateral swing of that heavily armed neck could easily puncture the flesh of an attacking carnivore. It effectively turned what is usually the most vulnerable, fragile part of a dinosaur, its long neck, into its most terrifying and effective weapon. Section 4. Evolution's Weirdest Defenses. True Evolutionary Wonders. So the crucial point here is that the Amargasaurus is a spectacular reminder that evolution doesn't always favor the biggest creature. Sometimes it favors the absolute weirdest defense mechanisms. This animal remains an absolute icon of paleontology for exactly this reason. It proves that the prehistoric world of long-necked giants was infinitely more diverse, complex, and dangerous than we ever originally imagined. Size wasn't always the only answer to survival. Sometimes extreme armor was the key. I want to leave you with this final cinematic thought today. Just picture yourself standing in a lush, ancient river valley in Argentina 130 million years ago. Could you imagine encountering a herd of these spiked, potentially double-sailed titans moving through the ferns right in front of you? It's a completely thrilling and, let's be honest, kind of terrifying thought. Let me know what you think about this incredible rule breaker in the comments below. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep exploring the fascinating realities of our world with us. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will see you on the next explainer.